Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad you could join us for this session. Before I begin, if you can just put a little note in the little question area or the little chat function to let me know what module you're studying, and obviously whether you can hear me and see the screen, just to make sure that I'm not talking to myself like a crazy person. So if you can just send a quick message letting me know that you can hear me, see the screen, and just to let me know what module you're studying, and then we'll get going once I know we're all good. Cool, we got some FAC1 601. Awesome. Okay, cool. So this module is for all of your Finacc subjects, your first year Finacc subjects. And in fact, the concept will help you a lot with all of your Finacc modules going forward. So, so this is very, very valuable. Okay, so for the session, I'm going to switch my webcam off so that we can focus on the screen. I'm going to send you notes and whatever I scribble on the screen after the session. So I don't want you spending time making notes while I'm talking, because you know, as I make notes or as I talk, then you kind of lose, oh, I must remember that, I must write that down, and then you kind of lose track of the next thing that I'm saying, and we've got quite a lot to cover, and so it's going to take, you know, it's going to be pretty quick, but I don't want you losing focus on what I'm saying and you're writing stuff down and then you miss the next 5 sentences. So I'd really rather you just focus and pay attention to the stuff that I'm saying. I am going to be going through a case study, not quite in the way that you expect. I'm going to send you the case study afterwards. I'm going to send you all the scribbles and notes so that you can see exactly what I've done with it. So I don't want you to panic. You're going to get all the stuff, but I need you to focus on the concepts that I'm going to cover. And some of it's going to be a little bit challenging in terms of stuff that you maybe haven't thought of, or it's not quite the way you do things or whatever. So we've got a lot to talk about, which is pretty cool. So for those of you, some people have just joined us. For those of you that have just joined us, if you haven't already, please can you just put a little question, or in the chat function, the question function, if you can just put a little note in there telling me what module you're studying, what module you're doing, and obviously just say hi or whatever, just so I know that you can see and hear me. And as I say, I'm just going to switch the camera off so that we're not distracted by my face. Okay. If I can find the little button. Chat, people. Okay. Cool. So the first thing, and again, you are going to get this afterwards. After this webinar, if you're going to enroll at for any of the courses, on the online courses at Tibaldi, please use that discount code ExamTech20. It'll give you a 20% discount up till the end of this month on any courses that you enroll for. And if you're looking for any information, please email queries@tibaldi.com so that they can give you our admin and query staff can give you any information that you need. Okay, so let's do this. I'm focusing on a couple of things today. So let me tell you what I want to talk about today and why. Getting marks in the exam, okay? I I want to be very, very clear, very, very clear, and I'm going to say this like repeatedly, and eventually my really annoying voice is going to get stuck in your head, I hope. And if it doesn't, that's what I want. You know, I want my really annoying voice in your head. Your goal when you're writing and studying for your Finacc papers, or for any papers, any studying that you do ever, is to get marks. Okay, so everyone I speak to, and I understand that, I know where it comes from, and I do a lot of study coaching, so I understand all that stuff, and I'm not here to go through that now, but I understand that what you're focusing on is knowledge. You know, I want to know the stuff. I want to know the assets. I want to know this. I want to know the formula. I want to know the formats. I want to know the depreciation calculation. I want to know. But the problem is that you spend 80% of your time in the semester on theory. You never get to the questions. You get into the exam, and one of your big problems in the exam is, where do I start? What do I do? How do I structure it? I don't have time. I'm going through the case study 5 million times. I don't understand, how you're supposed to keep track of all the detail. How do you make sense of all this stuff? What do they want from me? How do I format it? How do I put it? And the reality is that I need you to ditch this. Okay, I need you to ditch all the theory studying. I need you to ditch the idea that your purpose here is to get super comfy with the theory and the knowledge, and then I'll start doing questions. So most of my students will start doing questions in their study leave, like a week before the exam or 2 weeks before the exam. I want you to think of your exams as though you're learning to do push-ups, right? You can tell me, if for example, I said, at the end of May, I expect you to be able to do 50 push-ups for me. Would you say that it would be a smart idea for you to leave it for 2 weeks before the exam, before that, that session, and say, I'm going to start practicing how to do 50 push-ups 2 weeks before the time? No, you know that you got to build muscle strength. You got to practice. You got to go through the process, and you know that when you first do it, you're going to suck. Okay, you know that when you first do this, it's not going to go well. It's going to be slow. You're going to be able to do like 5, maybe 10, whatever the case is. But you know that the only way to do this is to keep going, and do more and more and more. And doing 10-hour gym sessions a week before the time, you may have 10 hours, but it's not the same as doing little bits and pieces all the time and building your muscle strength. So I want you to think of your questions. I want you to think of the exam like doing push-ups. You can't cram questions. You need to take the time to understand what's going wrong, what you need to work on, etc., etc. And your goal is about marks. I don't care how well you know your accounting equation. If you can't get marks in the exam in the way that the examiner and the marker is looking for it, you're not going to be able to write on your paper, sorry, I can't answer your question, but I promise you I know what the accounting equation is. Okay, so you've got to start looking at questions and go, what do they actually expect from me? Like, do you know what the examiner expects you to be able to do? 90% of the time, my students are going, no, I haven't touched any questions yet because I'm waiting to finish the work, which is ludicrous, right? Because how do you prepare for something when you don't know what you're preparing for? Right? You ignore questions and you don't look at questions because you're like, I'm not prepared, I'm not ready for them yet, but you don't know what you're waiting for. Like, you don't know what's waiting for you, which is ridiculous. Take a look at the questions, understand what they expect from you so that you know how to structure your work. Okay, so this is like beyond crucial, beyond crucial. Your focus and my exam technique advice when you are studying from today, from now, I don't care how much or how little you know, and I genuinely mean that, your focus is gather marks as you go. Learn how to pick up every single mark. If you say to me, I'm only 40% of the way through the syllabus, that's fine. Can you get 40% of the marks? It's as simple as that, right? You want to go through the entire syllabus. You want to know 100% of the syllabus so that you can scrape like 49% of the marks, and then that pushes you through to 50. Doesn't make any sense at all, right? So the focus, the purpose, the policy, everything I do with you is about gathering marks as you go. Very, very importantly, I need you to remember that time is marks. We have the thing in life, time is money, time is money, time is money. In exam, time is marks, right? So many students are like, they spend, way too much time. They look at something in the case study, they look at something on, on the question, and they go, do I, don't I? Do I add this in or do I not add this in? Do I capitalize it or do I not capitalize it? Do I take it into account or don't I? And then you sit there and you go, should I, shouldn't I? Yes, no, should I, shouldn't I? This is a problem. Your biggest danger is the time that you're wasting when you could be moving on to marks that you can get. Your examiner is not expecting you to get everything right, and you don't have to get everything right to pass, but your danger is that you're going to spend 5 minutes on something that's worth 1 mark, and then you're not able to finish the paper. You're not able to approach the questions. You're not able to do anything. So time is marks, and if you're in a position where you're going, I don't know what to do with this, pick something and move on. Like, pick a number and move on. And that takes practice because we're not comfortable with it and we're not okay with it. And we're going to get everything right. I understand that, but guys, absolutely, absolutely crucial. So what I'm going to be talking about today is format questions, financial statement format questions. So predominantly, a lot of marks in most exams are, at your level is, create the statement of financial position, create the statement of profit and loss. So that's what I'm talking about at the moment, and that could be 25 to 30 marks. So there's a lot of marks involved in there, and there's a lot of information. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to talk about these these concepts and how to deal with the information so that you can structure your information in a way that you're not rereading stuff all the time, losing detail, losing track of stuff, going back, forgetting, etc., etc. One of the things that I really want to say is that in first year Finacc, they cover quite a lot of structures of companies, of businesses. So they cover sole traders, partnerships, closed corporations, companies, etc. And unfortunately, without really being aware of it, students have a tendency, let me study this in isolation, then I'm going to study this, then I'm going to study this, depending obviously on what module you're doing, and then I'm going to study this. And each of those take a lot of time to do. So I have a lot of students, for example, that start FAC1 601 or 1602 that have got partnerships, and they're kind of going, okay, I've got to start from scratch. I've done 1502 and I've got to start 1601 from scratch because I don't know how to do partnerships. 80% of your financial statement structure is the same, right? So in an exam, if I don't know, if whatever happened and you had to write an exam and all you knew was how to do, a statement of financial position for a sole trader, you would still be okay. So this idea that these are all completely 100% different is ridiculous. Okay, there are differences. I'm not saying that there aren't, but in terms of your exam, don't be thinking I've got to finish all my studying of partnerships before I can even touch the stuff. There are an enormous amount of marks that are the same. Okay, so let's talk about how to structure the stuff and some of the concepts that I want you to be aware of. The most important person in your exam is the marker, okay? The most important person in your exam is not you. We have a tendency when we're writing exams to think about me because, I'm in my own head and I'm like, this is what I mean, this is what I want to say, this is what I know, this is what I don't know. I don't care what you know, okay? The only thing that counts is what you put on that piece of paper for the marker. So you've got to start practicing and asking yourself, what is the marker looking for? Silly things like, can he read my handwriting? Can anyone read my handwriting? Doesn't make sense. Does he know where I got my calculations from? Or, am I just writing out long lists of calculations and then, expecting that he's going to know where all the numbers come from? In a lot of cases, students will, if there's like 12 items in the calculation, they're like, I'm just going to add 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 6 plus 12. And all of these are coming from different places in the case study. And you're expecting the examiner to know where that comes from and what they're doing. You need to make references to that stuff and go, okay, that's the PPE and that's the depreciation and that. You need to label it. So things like that are really important to make sure that the marker knows what you're doing. Two very important things that you're going to take a lot of time to and you're going to struggle with is that there is such a thing as partial marks, which means that you can get marks even though you get the answer wrong, as long as you've gotten the process right. So if you're aiming for a 50% and a pass, it doesn't mean that you have to get the whole question right. you can get partial marks as long as you have answered. And that's something that we're going to talk about a little bit as well. So let me take a look at a case study. And as I said, I'm going to send you the case study. I just want you to be aware of the structure. So this is a very classic structure of a type of information that you would get in an exam for a format question, for a statement of financial position or a statement of profit or loss. Okay, you get an extract of balances, and then you get additional information which requires adjustments, and obviously you get your required. I'm pretty sure we all know that you should start with your required. So in this case, they want the statement of profit or loss at the 31st of August 18. This is a very recent exam paper, by the way, so it's very relevant in terms of the expectation, of what you're supposed to be doing. So they're looking for the SPL. This is a format question, and the nice thing about format questions is that it gives you a structure for your answer that I kind of call, you can go and plug and play the stuff. So let's talk about what I want you to do. Most students have a problem with the fact that there's so much information. So what do? Do you sort of take each line item and try and read it and work with it and calculate it and get an answer for it, as you read it from top to bottom? Do you start with additional information? Where do you begin? Like, where do you start? There are obviously a few ways that you can do this. So, if you've got a process that absolutely works, that's fine. But I'm gonna focus on stuff that gets you to marks as fast as possible. If there is a format question, okay, like a statement of profit or loss, the most important thing is that you have a statement of profit or loss. So my starting point would be on your mark paper, and I'm going to do it next to this because I don't want to be traveling back and forth. But you have a piece of paper next to you. You've got your case study next to that. So the first thing you're going to do is write out your format, and I talk about that as the shell. Okay, so get used to writing out your format as fast as possible. So make sure you get your heading right, your SPL for whatever. You've got to write that out in full, and then you create a structure. You create your shell, leaving space for stuff. So I know that my SPL looks like this. There's revenue, which is only ever one line item. There's cost of sales, which is made up of opening balance inventory, and I have to write quite fast, obviously, plus purchases, less closing balance inventory, which gives me my gross profit. Okay, so I know that no matter how complicated the case study is, whatever information, however much or little information they have, the SPL looks like that. Okay, so that's the beginning of your SPL. Then we have other income, and from here, get used to leaving like 3 lines open. I don't know what information is in there. Leave 3 lines open for other income. Then you have your distribution, admin, and other income. Other expenses. Sorry, handwriting's terrible. Okay, and leave a whole bunch of lines, leave the rest, leave a whole bunch of lines open. Use one whole page for this. It's not like, you're not like you need to waste paper. Leave the whole page kind of thing. So you have this on one full page. And then you have your finance costs. Leave 1 or 2 lines for that. And then, you have your profit or loss, your OCI, and then your total. Okay, so that's your format. Really, really badly done, but that's your format. Now, this, I want to be very clear, is your answer. Okay, this is the answer, which means that any number in here is going to be marked. Okay, if a number is not in here, there's no marks. So what a lot of students do is they start with their calculations, and I'm going to do this on the other side because, again, I don't want to go back and forth, and obviously my iPad has decided that it feels like being glitchy. Okay, let me put it underneath here. My iPad's being nasty today. Okay, so students generally start and they go, okay, I'm going to do all the nice calculations and then I will put the answer together. The problem is that, let's say you're working out revenue You go da 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 da. Here's my numbers. There's my numbers, and you get to revenue, and then your time is up, and you have to leave. If you've done the calculation here, but you don't have the number in there, you will not get the marks. Okay, so the examiner does not mark this number unless it is in the answer, right? So this is the answer. If they asked you for a statement of profit and loss, the answer is a statement of profit and loss, not your calculations, right? So whatever you do, leave 5 minutes at the end of your question. Always leave 5 minutes or 2 or 3 minutes, whatever it is, at the end of your question to make sure that any workings that you do, you've put numbers in here. Even if you're halfway through the working, pick a number and put it in here and reference it so that the examiner will look at it and go, well, that's a crap number. Where on earth did she get that from? Let me go and look at working 1. Okay, okay, she got that right, and she got that right, she got that wrong, she got that wrong, and you'll get 2 out of 4 marks for that. If you don't have anything in there, they're not even going to look at it. Okay, so crucial, make sure that you do that. The way to deal with your information, this case study, okay, let me try and do this nice and slowly so it actually zooms. Very annoying, sorry, it's a little bit nauseating. Okay, so what you need to do with this information is label it. Okay, don't calculate it, because we want to know what my information is. I want to know what I'm dealing with. I want to know, like what the structure is. So, and I want to read it once. I don't want to be reading my case study a million times. So label the information. Don't calculate stuff. Don't work stuff out. Don't think about it too much. Categorize it. When you have an extract of balances, the best way to categorize stuff is according to the elements and where it lands up on your financial statements, which means I categorize stuff according to whether or not it's going to be on the statement of profit or loss, the statement of financial position, and then I indicate for myself what the element is. Is it an asset? Is it a liability? Is it equity? Is it income? Or is it an expense? Okay, so these are how I categorize. So I literally go through this and say, all right, capital, that goes on my statement of profit or loss. It also goes on my statement of changes in equity, but this is the most important, and this is equity. My capital, statement of profit or loss, equity. Land and buildings at cost, SFP, and that asset. Vehicles at cost, SFP, asset. Accumulated depreciation, SFP, asset. Those are also, I'm going to skip a couple so that you can see what I'm doing without me going through the whole thing. Long-term loan, for example, SFP, that's a liability. Bank, SFP, that's an asset. Trade payables, SFP, that's a liability. Sales, for example, down here, we've got SPL, and that's income. And purchases, that's SPL, and that's our expense. Salaries and wages, SPL, etc., and you go through every single one of them. Now, what you've done, if nothing else happens, and if for some reason you've been daydreaming and the world ends and you're like, okay, I've got 2 minutes before my question finishes, what you'll do from here literally is take the numbers as they are and plug them into your answer. Yes, you're going to lose a lot of marks. Yes, the answer's not right, but you will get half a mark for using the given information as part of the answer. So if revenue has 3 components, the given information is one of them. Okay, so number 1, label the information according to whether it belongs on the statement of financial position or the statement of profit or loss, and then discuss or just label it in terms of its element, because you can see how nicely that's going to structure your statement of profit or loss, assets, liabilities, equity. It's sectioned off for you. Okay, so if you're in a position where you look at it and go, okay, interest on long-term loan, crap, I don't know what to do with that. The worst thing you can do is sit there and go, is it an asset? Is it an income? Is it because your personality is a perfectionist? Okay, so you want to get the stuff right, and your biggest danger is that you're going to sit there and debate. If you don't know what you're doing, you put a question mark next to it on the left-hand side of the margin, and you move on. Okay, that's it. You don't have time to debate. By putting a question mark there, you're categorizing it for yourself that you can go, I'll come back to that later if I have time. In the meanwhile, I need to move on. Okay, travel expenses, I know SPL, That's an expense, and so you continue. Settlement discount granted, no idea what that, I don't need you wasting time with stuff. You put question marks. So first thing, categorize according to statement profit and loss and the element. The next thing, once you've done that for the entire table, you move on to the additional information. Again, I don't want you thinking, calculating, I want you categorizing, labeling. So what you're going to do is connect your additional information to the information in the table, okay? Because the problem now is that, everything in your table, you need to adjust. And what students do is they're like, okay, let me start with revenue. So they read through the whole case study to find anything that relates to revenue. Then they're like, okay, now I need my opening balance of inventory. Okay, let me read through the whole case study again and go and see where I can find anything that relates to purchase. Let me read through, okay, this is what we can't do. So we categorize. 1.1, interest on capital is calculated at a rate of 10%. All right, so we categorize. This is, and it's only for me, this is interest on capital. And then very, very importantly, what I do is I go find this in my table and I go, okay, where is capital? Capital note 1.1, okay? So I'm referencing for myself. When I look at this amount here, I immediately know that there's additional information 1.1 that I need to go and look at. Each partner is entitled to a monthly salary of 5,000. Okay, so obviously there's a lot of people going, okay, salaries. Does it go, okay, what do we do with partner salaries again? I can't remember that. I don't care. Okay, at the moment it's salaries. So I categorize it as salaries and I go, where in my table is salaries? There it is, to 1.2 is salaries. They share profits, profit share, there's no profits in there. Okay, so that's their profit percentage. I categorize the information, that's all I'm doing. Year-end adjustments. On the 31st of August, salaries for services rendered. So that's salaries. And again, that means that I've got 2.1 as well, needs to be there. The only transaction involving equipment occurred on the 28th of February. So this has to do with equipment. So where is my equipment over here? There, 2.2. When equipment with a cost price and accumulated depreciation was traded in, so I make a little note, it's a trade-in. Can you see all I'm doing is just categorizing, I'm just labeling. There was a trade-in, depreciation has been calculated, so there's depreciation, and there's a new machine. New machine was purchased, so there's a new machine on the same day, supplier allowed, and that's it. Okay, so I'm not thinking about it. I'm not going, oh crap, I don't remember how to do disposals. I'm not thinking about any of that stuff. I'm literally just going, what is the information? And so I continue with all of them. Okay, and I'm literally just saying, this is depreciation, this is my loan. All I'm doing is labeling it. So now when I get to my revenue, when I get to my shell, I'm going to change this to green so we can see. Okay, I've categorized my stuff, I've labeled it. Now let me start getting marks. Revenue, where do we begin? Well, I'm going to need a revenue amount. If you're not sure, if you've got space on the line, then sure, do your calculation here. But if you're worried things are going to get squashed or you're not quite sure, how much space it's going to take and whether it's going to be simple or complicated, reference it. Working one, and then go to the next page. Do this on a new page. Hit it, give it a heading, workings, calculations, whatever, and label it. Cross-reference it, okay? Because the examiner has to find out what you're doing. The examiner has to be able to follow what you're doing. Always label it revenue, calculating revenue, okay? So it's cross-reference. Then you start and you go, okay, how do I calculate revenue? Well, I've got to start with the given amount. So I literally write out the given and I go and I look for my revenue in there, my sales, 536,820. Okay, 536,820. Okay, any other adjustments that go in here? So if, for example, I had like a 2.3 next to that because, point number 2.3 impacted that, then I would be able to go immediately to 2.3 and go, okay, let me see, what else happens in the calculation? What else do I need to do? Okay, so everywhere you go, then you calculate it, you go, okay, I'm done with this. There's my number, 536,820, and you take it straight to your to your format, straight to your format, okay? Because this is what you get marks for. That's your first mark that's earned. That's what you get marks for, right? This also means that you can do this in any order. So if you look and go, oh, I've always sucked at calculating purchases, I don't know how to do that, or I've always sucked at calculating closing balance, you can skip it and go, oh, let me go to other income. Let me go to the easy stuff. So other income, you know, there was some other income. Oh, okay, rental income received, rent income, and there's no calculation because a lot of these you can see, you know, a lot of them won't have adjustments. So rent income was 3,000 Rand, and I'm obviously going quite fast, you know, and it's all a little bit out of order because we don't have a lot of time, but you will have categorized it and you will have categorized it according to income or expenses, so you find it. This is worth a mark. You haven't actually done any calculations, you haven't actually covered the whole thing, but for any of the amounts here that don't have little numbers next to them, that means that there's no adjustments. That's a beautiful thing, right? So if I was in this position and I'm comfortable with doing this because I know what I'm doing, right? But so can you be if you do this with a little bit of practice. For me, I know that anything that doesn't have a little note next to it, there's no adjustment necessary. So pretty much all of these, I can just shove down straight onto, you know, onto my expenses, and I'll get a mark for each one of them for just pulling them through. So if I'm losing time, you know, if I'm kind of going, shit, I've got like 5 minutes before the exam's over and I've got to hand my paper in, guess what I'm going to be doing? You are going to be spending your time trying to finish that depreciation calculation, and you're only over there. I'm going to be, you know, going through the stuff and going, I'm just, you know, plugging as many numbers into this as possible because I'm going to get partial marks for it, okay, all along the way. Everything you do, you categorize, you label, you calculate, you do your workings. One of the other things that's extremely valuable that I want you to get in the habit of doing forever is creating timelines for yourself so that you can keep track of when stuff happens. And this is especially important for assets because trying to keep track of when stuff was bought and sold and depreciation and all of that rubbish can be quite painful. So when you start your question, write out, draw a little timeline and go, okay, my year end is the 31st of August, 18, which makes the beginning of year the 1st of September, 17, okay? Now you have two very specific dates, where the year started, where the year ends. So information they give you, you can plot and go, oh, okay, there was a new, you know, there was a new machine on the 1st of Feb. Now it's a lot easier to calculate, you know, how many months you've had that, the depreciation, etc. And you can plot out, you know, what happened at different points so that you can see in the year where you're dealing with, where the months are, instead of trying to keep track of that mentally. And this obviously is also part of your workings. Okay, so it's a lot to try and cover in half an hour. Okay, so very, very, very importantly, read and plan your information in the case study. And when I say plan, I mean label. Okay, label the stuff. Don't be calculating, don't be thinking about it, don't be pondering it, don't be, if you don't know what it is and you don't know what on earth to do with it, the first time you read it, put a question mark next to it, and then, you know, when you're finished with everything else, you can come back to it. Okay, if you don't get to it, that's fine, but at least you've gone around that. And having your structure there, you know, means that if you look at something and go, I have absolutely no idea what to do with it, you're not sitting in a position where you go, okay, I can't go any further until I've, you know, scratched and tried and begged and You can go, okay, never mind, let me move to the next one and let me go and do that. And if I've got time at the end, I'll come back to that. The market does not mark your stuff from top down, okay? And this is kind of what we think. When you see solutions in the material, you kind of think that the way to answer stuff is, you know, here's my revenue, and in the exam, I must have a number there, then I must have cost of sales, then I must do this. And we kind of think that we're supposed to be working top down, you know, left to right, top down, and that's how to build our answer. That's rubbish, okay? You do what you can. It's a complete mess, and there's a very good possibility that by the time, you know, the time is up, you might have left this blank because you never got to it. You've got some numbers in there, you've got a number in there, you've got a, you know, bits and pieces all over the show. That's fine. The examiner is going to look at every single number you've put on here and go, where did he get this number from? Let me go and look at the reference. And okay, got that right, good grief, what on earth was he thinking there? Okay, got the next step right. and got the final mark right. Okay, fine. There was 4 marks allocated to depreciation, and he got 2 of them, which is where, as I say, very crucially, this is where your partial marks come in. Okay, and let it go is what I'm saying when I said your time is marks. Okay, I don't want to know that you're sitting there. If you're sitting there going, like one of the things that students struggle with on here, for example, is like what to do with settlement discount received or settlement discount granted. And you go, okay, which one is it? And what do I do? Does it come off against sales or is it an expense? Make a decision. Okay. The most dangerous thing you can do is waste time. Okay. So one of the things I need you to do is when you go and practice doing questions, which you need to do like now, go and practice. And when you get to something where you're going, I don't know what to do with it, what you have to do is make a decision. Okay, it may be the wrong decision, but you have to have a decision because you've got to move on. You're not going, you're not going to get marks if you're sitting there for every second item going, oh, what do I do with that now? What do I do with it? So learn to give yourself a maximum of 1 minute. If you're looking at something, go, okay, I've got a minute. I can think about it for a minute and that is it. Then I have to move on. Then I have to let it go. Okay, because what if, you get stuck somewhere over here and you're spending, 20 minutes trying to calculate depreciation and you lose out on all of this. You may have lost out. Depreciation may be worth 4 marks and you've spent 20 minutes on it, and all these were easy marks and those were worth 20 marks, but you never got there because you were spending all your time to get depreciation right. Okay, so I want you to start looking at your questions as opportunities to earn marks. Okay, if you know anything about Finacc, then you need to start doing questions. You're going to say to me, but Yvonne, I'm not ready. I haven't finished studying it. I haven't covered. I don't care. You can see that this is a skill. Okay, this is going to take time to do. It takes time, but you can imagine the faster that you do it. You can imagine how much easier it's going to be to work through your information, and you're not going to be rereading stuff all the time. That takes a little bit of practice. So whether or not you're currently comfortable with how to depreciate or how to do depreciation or not, I don't really care. Whether or not you're comfortable with what exactly partnerships are doing, you don't need to know how partnerships work to do the stuff that I'm busy discussing here. Okay, but this is going to save you an enormous amount of time, 1, and 2, from today, you're starting to get an idea of the fact that the challenge that you face in exams is not the technical stuff, it's the skill, the practical, the time, the exam technique. Okay, this is why lecturers waffle on and on and on and on about exam technique, right? Because you guys are focusing on, oh, I'm not quite comfortable with my depreciation calculation. I don't know exactly, I can't remember how to do liquidation of partnerships. I can't remember how to do credit, allowance on credit. I must study that first, right? But the problem is that you don't know how to deal with the information in the case study. So you look at it and it's just this massive amount of detail and you're going, what do I do with that? How do I deal with that? Like, where do I begin? Where do I end? What if I don't know what to do with item 1.1? Can I move on? Do I not move on? Where do I go with it? So, I want you to take a case study, take this case study because, this might be a little bit more comfortable because, we actually kind of looked at it. Take this case study and go and plan it. Just practice planning your information and, allocating, labeling SPL, SFP, the element. Is this an asset? Is it a liability? Is it equity? Is it income? Is it expense? Because that's the easiest way to start going, okay, I have a structure to my information and I'm able to use it. I'm able to find it when I start doing my thinking. I'm able to find the information without rereading the entire case study. And by doing your format first, it allows you to move anywhere you want in the case study, anywhere you want in the answer. You could do all your expenses before you even touch revenue. If you're kind of going, crap, I just cannot remember what goes into revenue, that's fine, ignore it. Go and do your expenses first. Those are easy. Expenses are generally pretty easy and not a problem. If you don't know what to do with it, leave it out, guess and move on, because you're only going to lose half a mark. If there are 3 components to a calculation. Okay, if there are 3 components to a calculation, most students kind of think that you get marks for the answer, and if the answer is wrong, everything's wrong. No, what they do is they allocate and they go, there are 3 marks for this particular answer, and 1 of them are allocated to each component. So if you get that right and that wrong and that right, you're going to get 2 out of 3. So this is why I'm saying to you, it's important. I don't want you spending 5 minutes debating what that is when you've lost 1 mark, but you haven't lost 3 marks. You've lost 1 mark. Go, just move on. Just move on. If you get it wrong, they'll put a mark through that and you'll get that mark right and you'll move on. So important. Okay, I know it's a lot of stuff. It is a lot of stuff. I apologize. Well, kind of. There's so much stuff that I kind of want you to know and be comfortable with, but the most important is stuff that's actually going to get you marks. So as I say, this is why I focus on whatever you do. When you look at the time that you have for a question, here at the beginning they tell you spend 36 marks on this. So if it's 8 o'clock, and you're starting, make sure you kind of go at 8:33. I must stop all my calculations, and then all you do from 8:33 to 8:36 is plug numbers in here. So if you're halfway through a calculation, then you plug the number in here because it might be half right, but if there's no number in there, there's no marks. So always make sure you leave a couple of minutes before the end of the question to plug information in so that you give them the answer. Workings are not answers. Calculations are not answers. Only when a number is in there. The number could be completely wrong. They will go back to your working, but they won't go back to your working if you haven't showed them where it is or that you haven't labeled it and you haven't put a number, as wrong as it is. You haven't put a number in there. Oh my goodness, that was fast. We are recording the session. So if all goes well, you will be able to see a recording, which means you can stop it and go through it a bit slower. And as I say, I will send the scribbles to you. I will send the case study to you as well, so that you can try and do it yourself. Are there any questions? The session itself is over, so as I say, I'll send you all the stuff. If you have any questions, please type them in. I'm going to stay online for a little bit of time. If you have any questions, type them in and I'll try and answer them for you. If you can start by telling me, has this helped at all? Does this kind of indicate to you, oh, okay, there's a reason that I need to start doing questions. I need to shift my focus from theory to exam technique. I didn't realize that there was so much theory or skill, or tell me how you feel about some of the stuff that we've discussed, if you can, please, so that I just understand where you guys are while I take a sip of water. Hi, I'm back. My face is back. I know that you are extremely reluctant to do questions, and that never changes. I don't care what level you get to, you will not want to do questions. You will never feel ready to do questions. I know that. I've been lecturing this stuff for well over a decade, and every semester is the same thing. So I'm not ready to do questions, but the only way that you start learning how to gather marks bit by bit is by starting to do questions. If you start and you get 10% for a question, you're way better off than knowing all the stuff, and then on the exam day or like 3 days before the exam, you're going, I actually don't know where to begin. Most of my students, their biggest issue is, Yvonne, when I got into the exam, it just took me too long to start. I didn't know where to begin. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. I just I panicked, like there was just too much information and I didn't know what to do. Okay, so I need you to suck at questions. I need you to go and do a bunch of questions, suck at them, learn, pick up speed for writing out these formats, pick up speed for allocating, you know, every time that you can speed up a little bit on these things, you're saving yourself marks. Learn how to let go, learn how not to get stuck on something that you're going, but I must get this right. Okay, so do you guys have any questions on the stuff that we've discussed? Have you found this helpful at all? Yes, a little, got work to do, not comfortable with doing questions. Yep, we know. Never comfortable with doing questions. Go and fail them. The exam courses, this particular question and obviously a bunch of others, we cover in the exam course on Tibaldi, where obviously I do it a bit slower and I go through it from start to finish, kind of in this process to show you from start to finish how to do it. It's just very difficult for me to do this in half an hour. So, you know, if you want, if you're looking at it, you can, you know, go through to the website, use your discount code if you're looking for the exam courses only to kind of get a feeling for the process, you know, and to go through the exam technique itself. All right, so yep, struggling with questions, don't want to do questions, need to practice questions. Yep, that's it. I understand. There's nothing I can do that's going to make you feel better. No matter how much you've studied, no matter how little you've studied, you're still going to suck at questions. They're still going to go really, really badly. It's the way it is. It's completely normal. It doesn't mean that you don't know your stuff. It means that you're practicing how to use it in a different way. You know, it really is. You know, keep thinking about it as push-ups. You know, you can know exactly how to do a push-up. You can go and watch, you know, YouTube videos on how to do the perfect push-up, what you should wear, what you should listen to, you know, the right yoga mat to use, whatever the case is. You can spend like years perfecting the theory, the posture, but the only time you're going to learn to do push-ups is when you get your ass on the floor and start. And it's, you know, it's going to be difficult, but that's where you start learning, is when you get on the floor and start your first push-up. Not when you're watching YouTube videos of how other people do it, or perfecting skills and technique and knowledge that you've never actually used before. So be very careful about that. Really insightful, not comfortable doing questions. Yeah, I know. I really want you, you know, go and take a question from your TUT letters, any questions that you've got. Forget about, you know, all the detail. I really want you to do this today, because you kind of have this idea, you've got this thing in your head that's going, yes, this is a really good idea, and yes, I know I need to do it. But if you leave it until tomorrow morning, that sense of urgency and that real, you know, that understanding of what I'm trying to get you to do is going to go away. And you're going to go right back to, oh, okay, but you know, she's right, and that's good, and I have to do it, and but later. Okay, later is the most dangerous word for you, because you know, you're going to tell yourself like, that's great and that's right, but you know, I'm just going to finish this week. I just need to finish this topic. I just need to finish just. I'll do this later, next week, next, and you're going to be in trouble. Okay. I have had students redo, you know, these modules like 10, 12 times, because every semester they're like, okay, now I'm going to get to know my stuff. And when I know my stuff, then I will start doing questions, and it never happens, because you always want to go back to your comfort zone. Okay, get out the comfort zone. You don't learn, you don't grow, and you don't pass in comfort zones. So go do a question, go take a format-driven question now, and just focus on the planning, the categorizing of your information, and you know, annotating it so that you plan it for use, so that you get faster at the format, the planning, the labeling, etc. And that is going to be a massive component to helping you pass your exam and deal with the immense amount of information that you have to deal with. All right. If there are no more questions, then I'm going to say cheers, and I will get them to send you the PDFs of, as I say, my little scribble. And once the video is up you should get a link to the video as well. That generally takes a few days to edit, etc., etc. Other than that, thanks for joining, and I hope you have a really, really good day. Please go and do a question, plan a question. You don't even have to do the whole question. I'm not interested in the answer. I'm not interested in format, planning. That's all I want. Get used to that process. And yeah, have a fantastic day further. Stay at home, wash your hands, and stay safe. Cheers, guys.